about AI and everything that's happening. And this is an outline of my talk. So I'll just talk about what AI is, what LLMs are, what generative AI is. So because there are a lot of terminology that are being currently used, so it's very important for us to kind of contextualize where we are with respect to them. And I'll also include some tips on how to prepare for the future. OK, so there are a lot of definitions for artificial intelligence. And the main definition is it's a technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human intelligence and problem-solving capabilities. So we as humans, we have a lot of skills that we apply, such as learning from data, understanding language, recognizing patterns. So developing computers that simulate this process is artificial intelligence. And yeah, feel free to post questions in chat if you have any. And so one thing that is very important for us to know is that AI is not new. So AI has been around since the 1950s. So in the 1950s, it's the time where it emerged. Well, it emerged as a part of a workshop in Dartmouth College. And AI has been getting used in industry for decades. Okay, so usually the general perception is that AI has become new, but that's not true. So AI has been around for a very long time. So you may wonder, if AI is not new, then what is new? So in 2018, a model called the transformer was invented. And this model has the ability to process text in an extremely fast way. And after they developed this model, this has led to GPT, and it led then to ChatGPT. So 2018 was the most important point in probably AI history. So ChatGPT, yeah, of course, it came out like 2 years ago, but it would not have been possible without this transformer model. And the paper which introduced this model has like over 150,000 citations, which is a crazy number, even though it's a relatively new paper. So in 2018. So, so this is the big picture. So we have artificial intelligence. So we've already talked about what it is. Then we also have machine learning, which is a subset of artificial intelligence, which focuses on building models which adapt to data automatically. Then we have deep learning. You probably have heard this term before, which is a complex form of machine learning models which simulate the neurons in the human brain. And we also have large language models and generative AI models. And these are all models that are based on machine learning, which generate text. So when you hear the term a large language model, so all this model does is predict the next word in a sentence. So this model is typically trained with huge amounts of text. And what it does is learn to predict the next word in the sentence given the previous words. So even though what ChatGPT does come across as extremely intelligent, but behind the scenes, it does not really think like humans. All it does is just predict the next most likely word in the sentence. And we happen to see like a very fluent, nice text because it got trained with huge amounts of text. Maybe some people can answer this question in chat, but let's say that you are going to read the data that ChatGPT was trained with. So this includes a lot of data on the internet, including including all of the English Wikipedia, a lot of web pages. So how long do you think it's going to take you? So if you were as a human, we're going to read all the text that ChatGPT was trained with. So does anyone want to give any wild guess? The panelists are also welcome to guess.
Yes, 5,000 years in the chat. I feel like it's a very long time, but I could be way off.
Mm-hmm. OK, so yeah, that's actually a very good guess. So it would take you 3,550 years. OK, but here we're talking about like no breaks, nothing, just continuous reading at an average speed. OK, so that's a very long time, of course. So usually, like we look at ChatGPT and we think that it's extremely smart. But it took like a very long time for us to be able to develop like a chatbot which speaks like humans. So if you think about Siri, for example, from 10 years ago, we noticed that it was not like very reliable. Like after a few turns of conversations with Siri, then it would basically lose track of the context. Then it would start saying things that are kind of out of context. So it took us a very long time to be able to develop like chatbots which simulate how humans speak. So we are, as humans, are very good at learning language. So if you think about us, we're able to think and create very fluent sentences without having to read that much text that ChatGPT was trained with. So yeah, so there are a lot of applications to LLMs, including Google Translate, Siri, chatbots. So every time you have an application where a piece of text needs to be produced, then that's an application to large language models. Okay, so it's very important to keep in mind that these models, all of the AI models that you see, they're not really trained to use logic and reasoning in the same way that we humans do. All they do is produce a fluent piece of text, which happens to be correct because it was trained with huge amounts of data. So when ChatGPT gives you an answer, then what it's going to do is just generate the next most likely word based on statistics and probabilities. And that sequence, for the most part, happens to be correct because of the amounts of text that it was trained with. So there are a lot of generative AI models. So some of them generate text, such as ChatGPT. Everyone's probably aware of it at this point. There's also Gemini. There's Copilot. There are models for generating code, models for generating images, models for generating videos. And the models for generating videos have a lot of access restrictions just because of what can go wrong. So every time you look at a new AI problem, then you're basically going to do research on these tools and try them. So here I'm going to include tips on how to prepare for the future, given that there is a lot of anxiety around AI. So one thing that is very important is that we treat AI as an opportunity, not as a risk. So AI enables us to do a lot of things that we were not able to do before. So for example, like when it comes to coding, or when it comes to deploying AI models. So before ChatGPT, mainly access to AI models was only for experts. So you would need an expert who knows how to write code, how to train a model, and they would typically do it in the Python programming language. So access to AI models and training them was mainly done only by experts. But right now we have ChatGPT, which is this free tool that anyone can access and can be used to do a lot of things. So we have a lot of these tools which can be empowering to us as users. Also, it's very important that we work on our prompt engineering skills. So it's basically the idea of translating our thoughts into prompts to the AI model. So prompt engineering field emerged as a field, as a subfield of AI. So this is one of the fields in which there are like a lot of jobs and internships in. So it focuses on developing prompts that give us effective outputs from the AI models. So it's very important for us to be able to know how we can translate our thoughts into prompts, because that will enable us to do a lot of things that we weren't able to do before. But in order for us to do these things, we have to know what we want to know from the AI model. And it's also very important that we challenge the output of AI. So AI models make a lot of mistakes, and they have a lot of biases. So there's a huge subfield which studies biases in outputs of AI models. And all of this bias is stemmed from the training data. Okay, so we talked about how ChatGPT was trained using data in English from the internet. And if we think about the data on the internet, the data is not really fair among all the demographics. A lot of countries, a lot of poor countries don't have access, or a lot of people in poor countries don't have access to internet, and therefore their data does not get posted on the internet. And therefore, the views that we get from the AI models can be skewed towards countries which have access to internet, and also countries which speak English, because that's what most of the models are trained with. So it's very important for us not to accept the AI model, like the output of the AI model, without actually challenging it and making sure that it's correct. And also, there is usually a lot of anxiety for individuals. Usually we think of the future as dystopian, especially with how AI is changing a lot of things. But it's very important for us to focus on what we can do today. So we always have to ask the question, what is the best thing I can do today to improve my skills? And this is something that I ask myself every day. So, so here I'm going to talk about how AI changed my research. So when I started doing my PhD around 2015, so I used to write a lot of code. I mean, I still write code every day. But the problem is every time that I got stuck or I got a bug in my code, I had to Google. I had to ask a lot of individuals, and sometimes like fixing the code might take a very long time. But now I noticed that if I just like ask ChatGPT um, to find the bug in the code for me, then it's able to do that very quickly. So it made me a lot of more productive in that aspect. And also in my research, I used to develop a lot of models from scratch. So, but now we have GPT-4, which can automate a lot of these tasks for us. So overall, I felt like a lot more productive in research after ChatGPT. But also, it's challenging because everyone in my field also became a lot more productive. So you have access to these tools, but everyone has access to them. So we're starting to produce in academia a lot more, a lot more powerful papers. So it basically raised the bar for everyone. Also, because ChatGPT is more like of a magical tool that can do anything. So in order for us to have a contribution, we have to improve over it, and improving over something that's already very smart is not easy. And in academia, so I teach a course on AI in business. So in this course, I teach, it's CS250. So it does not require any coding. But what I focus on is the use cases of AI in business. So example applications include customer segmentation, where you have a group of customers and then you're trying to get an overview of the subgroups of customers. So maybe you can target each group with specific ads that are tailored to them. Also, sentiment analysis is how can we understand the customer's view? Is it positive? Is it negative? What is the customer happy about or unhappy about? But of course, how can we build an AI model which does this? So yeah, so this concludes my presentation, and thank you everyone for listening. And Anna.
Thank you, Ahmad, for the overview. And certainly, if anyone has any questions, we can move into those. But I would like to announce our other speakers today, and also just say that unfortunately, Margarita Belaya, who was going to be here speaking to the accounting side of things, was not able to join us. However, we do have James, who will also be coming from the industry side. So I will let Amanda and James introduce themselves.
Thanks, Anna. So my name is Amanda McCormick. I'm a senior director of growth marketing at Three Rings. We're a B2B tech marketing agency here in Boston. I was a marketing major at Bentley and then got my master's in marketing analytics in 2018. And thank you, James, so much for joining us too. I know it was a bit of a last minute, but both of us are on the Fold board, and we have been involved with a number of these webinars. So really excited to be here with you guys today.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, team, thanks for having me. James Purdy here. Nice to meet you all. I am a 2017 Bentley grad and a 2024 Gonzaga grad, where I got my master's in organizational psychology. I am a senior manager at about a 40,000 person consulting firm called Concentrix Catalyst. I'm based in Denver, Colorado, but we're global across just about any country you could probably think of. We probably have team members in. I lead our organization transformation practice, and as part of that, a lot of our Gen AI work. So looking forward to chatting about it today. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. So to kind of kick things off, love to have our panelists go around and just kind of briefly discuss how AI is currently being utilized in your respective fields, and then just any examples of applications that have really impacted your industry.
I can jump in first. So I mentioned I lead our growth marketing division at my agency. And so that a big portion of that is ad buying, paid media, digital advertising. And for many years now, that has been influenced by AI. And so, for example, when you see an ad on Instagram that makes a lot of sense because you've been talking about something or researching something, all of that process in the background is very much powered by AI. And that's something we use every single day. And we wouldn't be able to do our jobs, honestly, without it. However, that's sort of ramped up, I'd say, in the last couple years to the point where I need to put way less information in to get the output of a campaign I'd like. So previously I had sort of said, okay, we want to target these people with this campaign messaging and in these places, to put it very simply. But now you can do things on the platforms like, here's my website, build me a campaign and target the right people, which has been very interesting. I have lots of thoughts on how to use that capability, whether or not to use that capability, which I think we'll touch on in some of the other questions. But so that's a huge part of sort of the digital advertising space and a part of my day-to-day. I'd also say from a marketing perspective, a lot of the writing and image outputs that AI can generate is a huge piece of the marketing AI puzzle. Anything from writing blogs to press releases to campaign imagery, all of that can largely be created using AI tools now, many free tools as well. So it's kind of become a bit of the Wild West with how people are creating things and starting some of their marketing campaigns and processes. And there's lots of implications ethically for that. And just, especially since we're client facing at an agency, it's a very interesting debate on how we use that and when it's okay, when it's not, how much to use of it. So AI is a huge part of the marketing day to day, I'd say.
In the consulting space, I can jump in here. Thanks for that, Amanda. Team, I think a number of I think there's really kind of, two key ways that in the consulting space we've seen AI being adopted, and now generative AI is Ahmad shared, more recently. Internally, we have been using machine learning for quite some time, like well before the generative AI boom, right? From everything from just helping make our day-to-day a bit easier, to project and program management, to having some internal machine learning tools that can just be a bit more predictive with what we might need to do or type or say, and allow us to do that successfully, really just for efficiency gains, right? Even prior to ChatGPT, where we were quite heavy users of Microsoft Power Platform. So Power BI, Power Automate, Power Apps, right? These different AI tools that were used to help just make processes of building something more efficient. They weren't generative by nature, but they were just machine learning, right? When generative AI started kind of coming into the fold, team, we have a number of clients who are interested in implementing some form of generative AI tool, right? Whether it's from a customer service and customer support lens, who want to use it for external facing to their customers to find answers to questions more quickly, whether they want to help service customer service agents who can then find answers more quickly while on the phone or on chat with a customer. We also have a number of clients who are looking at implementing generative AI, where there's a lot of legality, right? Or a lot of really heavy contracts that they internally might need to sift through, or account managers might need to better understand, or sales teams might need to better understand. And so we're seeing a lot of the clients adopt it internally. And so we, as a consulting firm, have had to become experts on how do we implement this? How do we implement it ethically? How do we implement it so it's accurate? Those are some of the biggest questions we ask ourselves, right? There's now kind of one of the legacy cases is this Air Canada case, where Air Canada had a semi-nascent generative AI tool. A customer used it, it gave them the wrong answer, and the Canadian courts actually upheld that, in fact, the generative AI tool was speaking on behalf of the brand, and so they were legally bound to the answer that the tool gave the customer. I think in this case, it was referencing a refund and compensation. So those are all the things we're thinking about as a firm, as we both work with clients on it and we use it for our own internal work as well.
Okay, yeah. So thank you both, Amanda and James. So what we both mentioned is fascinating, and yeah, so I've noticed a lot of applications in industry when it comes to AI with customer service. Because if you think about ChatGPT, what it simulates the most is basically it's a chatbot. So in my industry in academia, so there are a lot of things that AI is changing, whether it comes to research or teaching. So in the research part, so when I was doing my PhD, just like I mentioned in the presentation, so I was doing building models which process and understand language. So for example, if you have the list of customer reviews, I was building models which machine learning based models which predicts if each customer review is positive or negative. But if you think about it, once ChatGPT came out, this can be achieved with a single prompt. So I no longer need to write a lot of code and train a model. So I can just basically prompt ChatGPT and I can get the answer. But this is not necessarily good news for all of us academics, because if you have a model that is extremely smart already and you want to contribute or do more, then it's become extremely difficult because you have this tool that does a lot of things. That's why my research shifted towards building interpretable and explainable models. So typically, ChatGPT, the main downside of it is that it's a black box. It has a lot of biases. We have no idea what's happening, and it makes decisions which impacts people's lives. So I try to build models which explain their decisions and they're easier to interpret, so that a practitioner can kind of take responsibility for the decision that the model is making. So the whole field is called explainable AI. And the focus is on building models which explain their decisions as opposed to just trusting a black box model. So this is in the research part. So in teaching, so it's actually become tricky. So right now, I think there has been a tendency to rely more on exams and less on homework assignments. Because if you think about it, ChatGPT can pretty much do any assignment. And one of our worries as academics is that it will, our worry is that students will rely too much on them to the point that they don't think and learn by themselves. So when I was learning how to write code in undergrad, getting stuck on code and asking people, this experience was actually very helpful. So because you talk to a lot of people, you think a lot about the code that you write, and then eventually you figure it out, and it's very fulfilling. But when you have a chatbot that answers any question about any coding question for you, so the process sometimes gets easier, but it becomes boring, and you lose some of the technical skills that you're supposed to develop by going through this, manual hard labor. So, so in academia, so it's been very interesting to see how generative AI is reshaping how we do homework and how we test students. And it has a lot of good things too. For example, there are students whose English is not their first language. They can use ChatGPT to refine the language, which actually helps in leveling the playing field for a lot of students. So this tool can also be also empowering, but it's been challenging for institutions in general to draw a line, when is it okay to use AI, when is it not okay to use AI. So this has been a part of a lot of the discussions that's taking place in the teaching space in academia.
I think that's a really important point that Ahmad mentioned. And Amanda, I'm not sure if you have a similar experience, but we will quite literally have contracts with certain clients who will explicitly state you are not allowed to use any type of machine learning or generative AI when creating assets or deliverables for us. And part of that is because, they're hiring our firm because we hire some of the smartest people in the world and they want really intelligent people. If they want to use a generative AI model, they could do that for a fraction of the price. And so we actually have clients who will specifically put language in there like that, similar to academia, where they'll say, hey, please do not use this tool or these tools. Amanda, I'm not sure if you've had experience with that as well.
Absolutely. And we've even had to sort of redo our whole contract system on our end to sort of upfront say, here's what we do, here's what we don't do. And that's usually the only sticking point when we go through that contract process with new clients, is just figuring out how comfortable they are with that. And then, 9 times out of 10, our default as an agency is to not be relying on AI for anything except just to make our day-to-day more efficient. Any of the outputs that we're generating for clients, to your point, they're hiring us for our marketing expertise, so we should be the ones creating that. So 100% that comes up in every new client conversation that we enter. So, and on the flip side, we also have issues where clients will produce something using AI. And for example, like if we're doing PR for a client and trying to get some sort of publication to publish coverage about a client, and let's say the CEO wrote a couple paragraphs with some context of whatever we might be talking about, and they don't disclose that to us. If we then submit that to a publisher, they're going to use their tools in the background to check if that's any AI has been used in writing the content, and we'll get dinged as an agency and said, you can't submit or work with us anymore. So we have to also be very upfront with clients that if they're producing anything that they want us to then promote or cast a wider net with, we have to be very clear about the fact that they cannot be using AI. We're happy to write it for them, but it gets very tricky with the client conversations there too.
Yeah. So so what both Amanda and James mentioned was extremely important. So we also have the notion of when is it okay to use AI. And I actually know several people who work in industry, so including my brother. And some companies don't allow software developers to use generative AI models. And the main concern is privacy. So you have all this code that your company is developing. So everything that you put in ChatGPT, you don't know. Sometimes for a lot of these tools, the privacy terms are very vague. So it's not clear how the data is going to be used. And some companies, therefore, don't allow using generative AI for coding. So we also have this whole other question about privacy, because if you think about it, we ask the generative AI a lot of questions, and privacy has become like a big concern as well.
Some of our clients have their own sort of in-house AI systems that we can tap into, but if we ever have to, for some reason, use ChatGPT, and there is some sort of confidentiality issue, we're constantly just like changing the names of the companies and coming up with fake information to get, a summarized version of something. But yeah, it's definitely an important concern.
Thank you, everyone. We would love to give those in the audience a chance to ask any of our panelists a specific question. If you want to pop something in the Q&A or chat, so we can kind of tailor the conversation to any questions that you may have as well. And while we're waiting on those, I believe one of the questions that was asked in advance of this session was any advice you'd have for students or just professionals interested in pursuing a career in AI within your industry, just any skills and knowledge that might be essential for those with that interest.
From my perspective, I think, and we hire a lot of entry-level employees, many of which are from Bentley. But I think it's always really valuable when they have a stronger AI skill set, just because it's not something we're trying to avoid. It's going to be a super important part of all of our lives moving forward, especially in the professional space. So avoiding it and not having that skill set is certainly not what we want. But what we always encourage is actually something Bentley talks a lot about, but it's sort of the soft skills that you then can sort of apply. So we talk about like none of the AI outputs or ChatGPT outputs are ever client ready. Like you always have to apply the context of what you know about the client, what their priorities are, how the voice that they like to write things in, any sort of brand element that you would know versus the technology, and being able to understand sort of what we need from a deliverable versus just, okay, this is what was, the output, so let's just go with it. Having sort of that other context and being able to communicate with the client about what we're actually looking to achieve is really what we look for now, because we're not gonna, we can't avoid the technology, so we might as well figure out the best way to work with it. And so really leaning on hiring people with the skill sets to communicate and understand client needs and apply that context is really key.
Something we focus on a lot. Perhaps I'm not in the hiring side as much outside of my team, Anna, but something we focus a lot on when it comes to Gen AI skill sets is both understanding how, and this is more specific to generative AI, but in general, like how does the generative AI tool actually work? Like, what is a transformer? What are tokens? Why are all these massive data centers needed to do this work? Why are all these big chip manufacturers kind of in this like chip race to supply to these generative AI firms, right? Understanding how the technology actually works, even at a baseline, right? Like I'm by no means a technical expert when it comes to like computer development or coding, but I can still understand generative AI and some machine learning methodologies and kind of workflows at a basic level, which is important. And then I think the number one most important thing I specifically look for when either hiring team members or bringing team members onto a team is just what's their prompt engineering skill set, right? And so I think a lot of people have heard about prompt engineering. This is a matter of, knowing how, where, when to use generative AI and how to get the specific answer you need or the specific output you need based on the input, right? So this is more than just saying, hey, Google Gemini or Anthropic or ChatGPT, help me answer this question or help me come up with a strategy that might work for this client. It's saying, hey, I need it in this specific format and it needs to be this concise, or I need it to be delivered in a table and I need it to be understood with this context. Something we do a lot of at my firm, we built an internal generative AI tool based on ChatGPT 4.0, I believe, team, and it ultimately we can build our own assistants in it, right? So what I've done is I've quite literally uploaded decks that I've built, decks that my client's working on, different resources that we might have internally so that the assistant can learn my voice, the way I like to speak, the way I like to type, the ways that I want feedback based on something I might be inputting into it. That's all part of this prompt engineering so that we can get the best results from the tool and then run it through the same filter that Amanda mentioned. So I would say those two are some of the things we focus most heavily on as we look at consulting.
Okay, yeah. So for me, what I would say is it's very important to be connected to recent news and tools about technology in general. So all of these tools keep changing all the time and every time, and we have like a lot of new technologies emerging. So we saw what happened with DeepSeek, especially recently. So we have a lot of these tools, but we also have to continue to kind of learn how to interact with these tools. So for me, it's very important not to stay in like a small box, but to kind of expose ourselves to all of these tools and interact with them and then understand what are their strengths and weaknesses. And also, I think it's very important for us to look for ways in which AI intersects with what we are most passionate about. For example, a lot of people are passionate about sports analytics. Okay, so we as humans, we have like the domain expertise because we have consumed a lot of information on certain topics. Some people are passionate about art, some people are passionate about sport analytics. So I think one great contribution that we can bring is we can look for an intersection of how these AIs are being used in these domains. And we can think about how can we bring our domain knowledge to the AI to create something that is more powerful or more empowering. So for example, if you're very passionate about, for example, the Boston Celtics, and you have a lot of domain knowledge about them, and sometimes the AI models do not capture like our kind of a sixth sense as a human or as a fan of the club. So maybe you can look for ways in which you can get the best out of the AI model when it comes to this particular domain. So for me, it's very important for us to bring our passions to AI so that we feel more empowered. Also, when it comes to technical skills, I think learning Python can also be very important. So all of these AI tools, or most of them, have an API, which means you can run Python code, which executes these AI models. And Python is easier to learn than other languages such as Java or C++. But if you learn Python and you learn how to apply the API models on a data set, then that can also enable you to run a lot of experiments. And the good thing about learning how to code is that you also have ChatGPT. You can ask a lot of questions back and forth about each component of the code, so it makes the process a lot easier. Whereas in the past, you had to take like a lot of courses in order for you to develop these programming skills. But now we have a chatbot which answers any coding question for us. So yeah, so those for me.
Thank you, Ahmad. Not seeing any questions popped up, but another one that we received ahead of this session was, what do you see as the future of AI in your respective industry? Any trends you've been noticing or technologies that you think are really going to take shape within the next decade?
Can jump in here with maybe some initial thoughts. This is probably maybe a bit of a minority opinion, and Amanda, Ahmad, please feel free to disagree because I think it'd make an interesting discussion. But I think myself and a number of clients I work with, and a number of different colleagues I have, we actually think that a lot of the use cases for Gen AI specifically right now are actually quite poor. We see a lot of things coming from the Microsofts, the Googles, the OpenAI, Anthropics, like a lot of the big names who are really pushing Apple, I would put in there, right? Who are pushing machine learning, intelligence, large language models, generative AI, even like large action models, which is even newer than kind of large language models, are getting some pretty poor feedback on the actual use of these, both for consumers and from a B2B perspective, right? I think Apple Intelligence is a good example of both being late to the party and, quite frankly, just not really landing where consumers need it, right? It's just not really that friendly of a tool to use, and the adoption rates for something like Apple Intelligence on the most popular smartphone in North America have been quite poor, right? And so I think it demonstrates that as people here listening to the recording come into their professions or continue on theirs, we still haven't really cracked the code on what the actual use cases are. I think in the B2B space, we've done that a bit better, right? Especially in places like, industries where Amanda works. Education, I think we've certainly done an okay job. I think for a lot of the industries I support in consulting, we do a lot of work with some large tech companies. We do a lot of work with in kind of the marketing space. There's certainly use cases there that are being explored and being used, but I still think there's just a ton of evergreen space for us to figure out how do we actually use these tools successfully. I think it's the same conversations we were having 20 years ago when the internet first started popping up and we had the dot-com boom of like, how are we actually going to use the internet the same way when the iPhone came out in 07, 08? Like, how are we actually going to use the iPhone, right? Where it's just such a new technology that I think we're just not figuring out how to properly use it yet, which is why we see so many struggles with adoption rates, both in a B2B and B2C lens. So not to sound overly pessimistic, but I just think in a very realistic sense for people who want to get into any industry, start thinking about what the use cases are, right? Outside of just, it's going to help me shorten the time it takes to write an email.
I could jump into, I do tend to agree with that, but I also, agree with what you said specific to marketing, that a lot of those use cases have been, at least adopted a bit more, and they're starting to be talked about more and just a more regular part of our day. So it's kind of just figuring out now how to work that into the mix in an effective way. One area in particular in marketing that I see, a lot of innovation and change happening and having an impact on how we hire and who we hire, is from a design and a creative perspective. The the technology is certainly not where it needs to be yet. But I think that's a very specialized skill set that now can kind of just be taken care of more or less, from video work to graphics to just general design concepts. And normally it's a very specialized skill set that we have to hire for. And now when we do make those kinds of hires, you really have to kind of go above and beyond. You can't just have like, I know how to use Adobe and I know how to use it really well and I'm efficient and can come up with things quickly. It's how am I better than the AI basically? And how can I come up with more creative concepts? So that in particular for marketing is one area that it's very interesting right now and it's evolving quickly, I'd say.
Yeah, so thank you both. And then I agree with both James and Amanda. So a lot of the AI output that we get can be quite poor. And this goes to to a point, which is basically the idea that our role is probably going to slowly change. I think our role is going to become more about interacting with AI models, where it's basically going to focus on like building prompts that give us the output that we want. So communicating with AI models, writing effective prompts, that's the first thing that I see is going to become a lot more common. And the second thing is going to be validating the output of the AI model. For example, like James has a lot of expertise.
Yes, he does.
I didn't know if I froze or if a mod might have frozen very briefly.
Oh, no.
Oh, there we go.
Hello?
He's
back.
Am I back? Yeah.
You're back.
Yeah, the Bentley Wi-Fi has been a bit the past couple of days. Yeah. So also it's going to be very important for us. I'm not sure which part did it cut it, but that we know the domain in which we are using the AI very well, because otherwise we will not be able to know if the answer that we're getting is actually accurate or not. It could be completely biased. That's why it's dangerous to trust AI in domains that we don't know very well. So I think also soft skills are going to be very important, such as communication. So right now, if we look on social media, there are a lot of AI posts, like AI-related posts, AI art. And I think a lot of people are kind of starting to kind of miss or appreciate the human elements when it comes to those kinds of domains. So I think even though AI is expanding rapidly, we as humans, we're still going to appreciate the human experience a lot more. Okay. So for example, even though I did the whole PhD in AI, when I speak with customer service, I would still rather speak with an actual human than an AI chatbot. So so it's interesting that these soft skills, such as communication, are actually becoming important. Like 10 years ago, we imagined that the future is going to be based on just technical skills, learning how to code, software engineering. But now we have AI, which can do a lot of this kind of work for us, which means that our role as humans is going to be focused more on communicating with AI models, and how can we communicate the AI models output to maybe our colleagues in our workspace, and how can we make sense of those results. And doing this requires soft skills, such as communication and listening. So this is how I see the world reshaping. But like I mentioned, the presentation AI is not really new. It's been there for 50, 60 years. What's new is that we have these chatbots which generate fluent language, but this is also extremely empowering in a lot of domains.
Thank you, everyone. Not seeing any other questions in the chat or Q&A. But I do want to just say a big thank you to our panelists, Amanda, James, and Ahmad. Thank you for the pivot today with our slight change of program. But thank you so much for everyone who joined us. I do just want to quickly mention that our next Falcons in Flight is going to be Thursday, April 17th from 12 to 1 p.m. We're going to be discussing how to hire for durable skills. If you're interested, I just placed the info for the event in the chat. But thank you again for everyone who joined us today.